So if you're thinking about moving to Lynchburg for work, you're probably asking the wrong question. The question isn't, are there jobs here? There are, of course. People work here, the lights are still on. The real question, the one that actually decides whether this is a smart move or it's going to be a really stressful one, is this. Are there enough jobs in your specific field to make you feel secure about moving here? Because that answer is completely different for a nurse than it's going to be for a machinist or an engineer or a teacher or a software developer, or, somebody who's in a really specific, narrow specialty. So let me give you the honest version of the Lynchburg job market, where the opportunity is, where it's going to be a little bit thin, what pay really looks like, and exactly what I would check before I moved anybody here without a job already locked in. So let's ground it in reality first. When people say Lynchburg jobs, what we really mean is the metro area, which is both the cities and the surrounding counties like Bedford, Amherst, Appomattox, Campbell. You get the idea. So as of this spring, that area, the labor force has about 126,000 people, and the unemployment rate was about 3.9%, which is a little bit below the national average, which is like 4.2% or something like that. So jobs have been growing. Actually, it's up about 1% year over year. So good things. Here's what this means in plain terms. This is not a booming town, and I'm not going to pretend that it is, but it's also not just some fragile little economy that's, propped up by one college and a grocery store. It's actually stable. It's steady, and steady is pretty underrated whenever you're uprooting your life and moving to a different location. Now, the real strength of Lynchburg's job market is that it's a mix. It's not like a one-trick pony. So healthcare and education are the two biggest anchors. And after that, you've got a lot of people working in the trades, in transportation, in warehousing. And there's actually genuinely a pretty large manufacturing base. Government jobs, there's of course retail and service work and professional business jobs that kind of fill in the gaps around that. And this mix is the cushion. So when a town leans on many industries instead of just one, a single bad year for one employer doesn't, sink everybody's ship. Now, the part that surprises almost everybody who moves here is that Lynchburg has a real nuclear technology cluster. It's not a gimmick. It's like genuinely an engineering and manufacturing hub. So BWXT Technologies, they have their headquarters right here, and they employ over 2,100 people in this region. Framatome runs their entire United States headquarters out of Lynchburg, and they employ like 1,800 people or so. And Framatome actually announced the other day that they're hoping to create about 515 jobs by 2029, with an average wage on those being like $100,000, which is pretty insane. Now, let me be careful there, because this is not what some people are going to take it to mean, because I don't want to oversell it. That doesn't mean that there's 515 jobs that are just sitting open, waiting for anybody and their Uncle Bill to come and take today. It means, one, that the company is growing over many years, but it also means that while real paying technical jobs exist, we're not just going to let anybody go play with explosive stuff. There's certain certifications and things like that. This cluster does open doors of engineering and design and project management, manufacturing, quality control, skilled trades, and IT. It can get competitive, of course, because who doesn't want to get paid $100,000? And some roles, many of them, do need specialized experience in some specific background. Typical regulated industries require that. So if that's in your world, then Lynchburg 100% deserves a pretty hard look. But if it's not in your world of work, don't just assume that the nuclear sector is just going to pick up your resume and say you're hired. Again, it's explosive stuff. Healthcare is the next major anchor. So Centra Health runs the main hospital system here, and that actually creates a pretty deep bench of roles and job opportunities itself. So nursing, clinical care, administration, IT, facilities, billing, all of the things. So if you're in healthcare, this is probably one of the more flexible fields that you can explore locally. Education runs pretty deep too, because of course Liberty University is the biggest name around here, but it's far from the only one. There's University of Lynchburg, there's Randolph College, There's Central Virginia Community College, and of course there's public schools and private schools, and all of that is a lot of jobs. And beyond those anchors, the employer list actually does still surprise people. Believe it or not, there's still a larger pool. So names like Abbott Nutrition, Delta Star, Frito-Lay, Genworth, Georgia Pacific, Glad, J. Crew, L3 Harris, they all have presence here in this region. There's more industrial, technical, and business work here than honestly most small cities of this stature. And of course, the skilled trades still and always will deserve their own accolades. I mean, all that industry work means that there's real machinists, welders, electricians, maintenance techs, inspectors that are all needed. And some of those jobs pay pretty well, especially if you got the experience or the certifications. But just know that hiring can move slower in these, regulated manufacturer or government connected employers. An application today doesn't mean you're going to start next week. So of course, build into the time, for your move with the interviews, background checks, and the onboarding and all the stuff that comes with those jobs. Now, honest warning, because I promised you I wanted to be honest. The pay here does run lower than the national average, even for some of these other jobs. So the typical wage in Lynchburg, the average, is $28 an hour, where the national figure, national average is $34 an hour. And that's a 17% difference, right? It's nothing to wink at. But here's what we actually do with that. And honestly, it's the same thing I tell everyone. Yes, housing is cheaper, but you can't just look at the salary and you can't just look at the house. You have to hold them together. You have to actually build a monthly budget based on your income. A lower paycheck attached to a much lower cost of living can be a beautiful thing, but only actually once you run both numbers side by side. Otherwise, you're going to end up in trouble, and nobody really wants to be house poor. Now, there's one more thing that I feel like nobody really talks about, and that is career depth. So it's just asking yourself a really scary question, honestly. If you lost your job here, how many other local employers are going to hire something that is close to your role? A nurse has multiple settings to explore. An engineer might have options across nuclear, manufacturing, utilities, but somebody in more of a narrow field, like a biotech or something like that, if there's only one or two jobs, it's a little bit thin. Now, remote work obviously can work. It can solve that problem, but only if it's, stable and your house has good internet. So we check on all of these things, before we sign any paperwork when it comes to that kind of stuff. So here's the 5 steps that I would run before I make any move. Step 1, search your exact job title, not the general field, not, marketing, not just engineering, but an actual role. And then search it within realistic driving distances of where you want to be. Step 2, count the employers, not the listings, because 10 openings at one company is still just one company. One company is, a risk. 3, compare the real pay against your full monthly costs, mortgage, taxes, insurance, utilities, commute, all the stuff. If the employer offers relocation help, ask what that covers, when you would actually get it, whether you have to pay it back, if you leave early, all that kind of stuff. 4, ask how often you need to be on site if you're hybrid. Hybrid jobs downtown is going to point you to something different in how you search for homes than if you have a night shift in Campbell County or off of Forest Road. And 5, even though this should technically be first, you should probably talk to your lender before you do any kind of job change. A new job, a probation period, a bonus income, or relocation package. It can all make things complicated if you're relocating. If you're moving within the city, it's a little bit easier, but especially with relocation, we always need to understand the whole picture when it comes to lending before we go doing anything, because you don't want to find out that kind of stuff the week of closing. I've been there and it's not fun. So once you know where the job actually is, then and only then do we actually start the housing search. Once we know where the job is, lender approval, then we search. So if you work, downtown or near Centra, then the city might be the simplest commute. But if you work along Forest Road, or you are in Lynchburg and you just need some more county, more space, then maybe the counties are the best option for you. So here's the truth of it. Lynchburg does have a stable base for a few industries, and many of them are unusually strong for the size. And there is a pretty wide mix when it comes to those options. But if you need a specialty and that is the place that you reside and that's what your degree's in or something of the nature, then it's just something to consider before coming here. We need to make sure that your specific job is here or that you can work remotely before we do anything else. So if that's you, whether you're here, whether you're relocating, we can figure it out together. I'm always available. If you want to find my information at the link below, my number is there. I'm always here to help. So if that's you, then I guess we'll talk again soon.